Good day, everyone. I'm Kuzel Guevara, and I will be discussing with you the issues in performance appraisal. And I'm responsible in discussing with you the general issues or errors involving performance appraisal in organizations. During the performance appraisal process, we face common problems. However, we can take measure to avoid them. These are the examples of judgment errors: bias, stereotyping, halo effect, attribution, status effect, contrast, leniency, and recency. First, we're going to talk about bias or favoritism. This kind of behavior is not favorable in the workplace. So, bias is giving an excessive high or low scores to certain employees based on the manager's attitude towards the employee. So this favor could be given on the basis of race, religion, or even friendship biases could affect the ratings. Having this kind of favoritism is dangerous to the organization. On the other side, if you're rating someone very low who is a great employee, that can just kill down the morale in the organization, and that make an employee a counterproductive employee. Next, stereotyping. Stereotyping is defined as mentally classifying a person into an affinity group and then identifying the person as having the same assumed characteristic as the group. So in this error, a manager tends to make judgment by their own predetermined mindset towards a particular employee's race, gender, political stand, religious background, culture, and other characteristics. Within a group, and particularly in an appraisal, we must abandon stereotypes and get to know each employee individually and objectively. We have to look beyond the labels and assess the worker through established performance standards and the real achievements. Next, halo effect. This is also known as horn effect. Halo effect occurs when the evaluator forms a generally positive impression of an individual and then artificially extends that general impression to many of that individual's categories of performance. So that's the halo effect in action. The halo effect is the tendency for a single positive rating to cause the manager to inflate all other ratings. So it's almost like the manager is thinking that if she's good at this, then she's probably good at that too. So for example, one person in the team always hits their sales targets and exceeds expectation year after year. So during the evaluation, their manager's judgment may be clouded by this, and they rate the employee as excellent in all aspects without carefully examining their results in the other areas. So the best way to mitigate this is by using an evaluation method that is as accurate as possible and that enables you to rate observable and measurable actions without leaving room for interpretation. Next error is attribution. It involves making your independent beliefs of possible causes of some behaviors or outcome and letting that influence your judgment. So in a performance review, for example, an attribution error could happen when an employee gives a negative answer to a question and the manager assumes that they have a negative attitude towards their work. So it is never a good idea to develop an assumption of what led an employee to behave in a manner that he or she is and later use it as a basis for reviewing the appraisal process. For the next error, status effect, it refers to overrating of employees in higher job or jobs held in high esteem. So on the other side, underrating employees in lower jobs or jobs held in low esteem. So the manager rating is affected by status exposure, in which he gives higher points to those employees who work at higher positions. And he gives fewer points to those employees who work at lower position in the same organization. In such cases, the manager's judgment is based on positions of their employees instead of qualification and work performance during their appraisal time. Next, contrast. It happens when the rater compares and contrasts performance between two employees rather than using absolute measure of performance to assess each employee. So comparison can be helpful when making ratings, but contrast effect is too much of this particular good thing. It causes manager to overuse comparison when making their scores. So for example, we have here named Mike. So Mike is a very detail-oriented, but slightly less detail-oriented than his coworker let's name her Sharon. So the contrast effect might cause Mike's boss to rate him low because the boss can help comparing him to Sharon. So the contrast effect can lead to overestimates or underestimates of a person's ability. Each employee is unique and therefore has different strengths and weaknesses that distinguish them as a professional. An appraisal will never be fair if we try to compare one person's ability with another. For our next error, leniency. So there can be a situation where some managers are too lenient and will end up praising all employees above the average. So the leniency bias is exactly what it sounds like. It means that the manager is lenient and is going too easy on the person they are rating. So the question is, why do they do so? So sorry, it is to be in a good books of his or her subordinates. Since there might be that their identity will be revealed, and of course, if he or she will rate them low, it will reflect his or her low worthiness. And of course, they don't want to get into conflict. So that means all scores will be very high or very low. Like the halo effect, the leniency bias makes it challenging to know an employee's true pattern of strengths and weaknesses. For the last error, we have recency. It occurs when the rater uses only last few weeks of a rating as evidence when putting together performance ratings. So due to this, employees relax after the appraisal and try to do overwork just before the time of the appraisal. So this creates a recency effect for the managers who creates a perception either good or bad for any employees based on his performance before the appraisal. So measuring employee performance is important, and asking employees to rate one another is a valuable piece of that puzzle. So don't let rater bias prevent you from using this important information. One of the best ways to counteract rater bias is to carefully review employee rating data. So high quality performance review software is designed to make this a breeze. So performance review software gives you the tools you need to know when rating data might be compromised. So in this way, you can prevent your company from using inaccurate data to make the wrong decision about the employee's performance. I hope all areas of performance appraisal is clear to you. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.